You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you may not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
Hello, Royals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Royals Rundown Podcast, sponsored by Royals Review. I don't know if technically sponsored is the right word, but it's the one that came to me. Those of you who are eagle-eared among us, well, I guess eagles don't have ears, bat-eared among us will notice that I am not my lovely co-host, Jacob Milham. I am instead his lovely co-host, Jeremy Greco. And unfortunately, Jacob had something come up, so he will not be joining us for this episode. That said, I'm still here, and I will be joined by a lovely guest from Rapsodo today. So I'm very excited to speak with a person whose name I absolutely remember and have not forgotten at all. It's Brian. It's good. It's Brian. We're talking to Brian. I should have looked this up before I started recording. Brian Page. There you go, Brian Page. We're gonna talk to Brian Page about Rapsodo. So I'm pretty excited to learn what Brian can tell us all about Rapsodo. Of course, they have that's one of the major technology companies that works with baseball. I guess they also work with golf. I saw on their website, so that's pretty cool, I guess. But we're going to talk about baseball, obviously, and I'm super excited to learn all about how Rapsodo can help guys get out of some mid-season slumps and stuff like that. So I hope you'll stick around for that. Before we get to talk to Brian, I thought I would go ahead and give us a little Royals injury report update, since that's kind of, the thing that we do for the Royals right now. We don't need to talk about what happened on the field. We're just going to talk about what's happening off the field. So Kris Bubic was scratched from his latest rehab start. It was supposed to go 3 innings. It went 0 innings. He's got more shoulder soreness, so he's going back to Kansas City to be evaluated further. Cole Ragans has had his surgery on his elbow. I don't see any update on what they did to his elbow, but he's done. He's done for the year. So that is truly unfortunate. Also part of Kris Bubic, his setback is that he was moved to the 60-day IL, so that the Royals could call up Randy Dobnak. They put Curtis Seabold on the IL. He has a right lat strain. They have no idea when he's going to be back. I don't think any Royals fans care, other than, wishing a fellow human well. None of us have ever been excited to watch him pitch, and he hasn't done anything to make us more excited. So I wish him well personally, but professionally, I don't super care if I see him pitch again. So they did call up Randy Dobnak, and they added Jose Cuas back to the roster, old friend Jose Cuas. And he actually got into the game last night, pitched 2 innings, struck out 3, did give up a run. So that's unfortunate, but didn't walk anyone, 3 strikeouts in 2 innings. That's, I'd take that as an audition to join this Royals bullpen right now. That's what we want to see. We have no we do have an update on Carlos Estevez. He threw a bullpen on June 27th, but suffered a setback. He received an ejection yesterday, July 1st, and he will be shut down for the rest of the week before being evaluated again. Kyle Isbell and Vinny Pasquantino have both been rehabbing. They've both taken batting practice on July 1st, and if all goes well, they'll be on rehab assignments next week sometime. So I guess that's good. I didn't really expect Kyle Isbell to be back that quickly. Again, with Kyle Isbell's got the left plantar fasciitis. Vinny Pasquantino has the fractured hamate bone. So there's going to be huge concerns even once they're back and quote unquote healthy with how well they're going to be able to play. Kyle Isbell, I would expect to probably be a little bit slower. And if he's a step slower in the outfield, will his amazing jumps be enough to continue to make him an elite defensive center fielder? Because his bat is not enough to keep him in the lineup. It's his defense. And if the defense goes because he's slower because of the plantar fasciitis, then he could be actually a detriment to the roster. And Vinny Pasquantino, the hamate bone injury frequently leads to power outages. Now, of course, as I mentioned when he first suffered it, we have seen some guys come back and look just fine, such as the guy out in Arizona, the outfielder, who I love watching play and whose name has suddenly escaped me. Corbin Carroll. That's his name, Corbin Carroll. So hopefully Vinny will follow more of the Corbin Carroll path than the Blake Mitchell path. The Royals, MLB announced that Blake Mitchell and my favorite sub-AA prospect, Kendry Churio, will be participating in the Futures game during the All-Star break, so that's very exciting. We also got our first home run derby participant announced. Junior Caminero is going to be playing, and he's got 9 home runs in his last 8 games, thanks in large part to the Royals, who have given up, 6 of those? So Junior can thank Kansas City for that appointment to the home run derby. He's an exciting kid to watch in the derby. Setting aside fandom for a moment and just loving the sport of baseball, which is something I like to do, especially when the Royals are as bad as they are this year. Junior Caminero is a great pick for the home run derby, and I look forward to seeing him, and hopefully I look forward to seeing him lose to Jack Caglione, but we're still waiting to hear who the other 7 participants are. So the Royals do have one more game against the Rays tonight, as I am recording this on a Thursday, and then they will be off on Friday because of the World Cup. And they will start a 3-game series going Saturday, Sunday, Monday against the Philadelphia Phillies, who fired their manager earlier this year and are playing much, much better now. I think the Phillies are even in playoff position now. Let me check that real quick. Of course, that doesn't necessarily mean, the Royals should have fired Matt Quatraro, then they would be playoff contenders again. The Red Sox fired their manager, and it did not make them playoff contenders. So, just something to keep in mind. The Phillies are leading they're second in the NL wild card. 3 games up on third in the NL wild card, who are the Cardinals and Marlins are tied. And the Nationals are just 1.5 back. It's The Phillies have really bounced back hard. Good for them. They were always a much more talented team that should have been playing better. I don't think firing the manager actually helped them. I think it's just they were underperforming, and now they're back kind of where they were supposed to be. It's one of those things. When David Lesky was trying to share with us, early this year when the Royals were struggling a little bit, most or at least half of the playoff teams over the last several years have had stretches as bad as the Royals started the season. I think there was only one that had started the season that bad, but yeah. So good teams have bad stretches. The Royals have had a bad more than a half of a season now. They've played 87 games. And they have the worst winning percentage in the American League, and they are hanging on by a hair over the Colorado Rockies for the worst in baseball. The Mets, who just fired their manager, are a game ahead of the Royals, and the Royals are a game ahead of the Rockies for the worst record in baseball. Everyone knew the Rockies were going to be this bad. This is a stunning fall. And I just want to remind everyone, this was not just Royals fans huffing the copium or whatever it is you kids say. This was the Pacoda thought the Royals had a real shot to win the division. Pretty much everyone picked the Tigers and Royals to be neck and neck at the top of the division, and unfortunately both teams have really suffered. The Tigers not as much as the Royals. They are 3 games better than the Royals, but that still puts them 4th in a division where everyone expected the White Sox and Twins to really... The Twins are 2.5 games out of a wild card spot right now. They're only 4 games under 500. The AL Central is all topsy-turvy. And the White Sox are tied... the White Sox are a game up on the Guardians for the division leads. So everyone who's like, oh, you can't lose to the White Sox. Well, a lot of people are losing to the White Sox this year. I know a lot of people still don't believe in them. I think they might actually be good. I think the White Sox might actually be good, everyone. They are currently facing off against the Guardians, so that's going to be pretty huge for them entering the weekend. So good luck to the White Sox, I guess. I just can't hate the White Sox as much as I hate the Guardians, or I've always hated the Guardians and the Tigers, and I always want to beat the White Sox and the Twins. But if the Royals are going to be awful, then I would rather the White Sox or the Twins. I usually would prefer the Twins, honestly. I feel like the Twins are kind of the sibling of the Royals, in that it's like, I'm your sibling, I want to beat you, but I'm going to stand with you against anybody else. So I usually go with the Twins in these kinds of circumstances, but like I said, the Team Italy stuff going on in Chicago, and the fact that they have 2 kids named Montgomery, I don't know, that's goofy to me. I like that. And Murakami is such a fun story. So I am rooting a little bit for the White Sox. Certainly I'm rooting for the White Sox, as I said, over the Guardians and the Tigers. They are not sibling status like the Twins, but they are, they're that weird kid that I'm like, you know what? Good for you, weird kid. I'm glad you stopped eating glue long enough to show us that you do have some talent. So that's kind of the situation around baseball. The Royals. Hey, I'm excited because Jack had 2 hits last night. Maybe he's coming back out of this slump. Not in time to win probably Player of the Month in June at the end of things. You just can't have a hitless kind of final week and make Player of the Month. Have they announced the Player of the Month for June? I don't think they hadn't announced it when I looked yesterday. They have still not announced the Players of the Month for June 2026. So I guess there's still a chance. I thought Yordan Alvarez would be the guy if it wasn't Jack, but Yordan won it in April, so would they try and give it to someone else? Could Jack still be in line? Probably not, but I'm gonna, maybe. It could happen. Maybe. I don't know. It could. It could happen. So, Jim Carrey, you're telling me there's a chance. We'll go with that. Let's see. Do I have anything else to talk about with the Royals? Nope, I don't think so. Just a little around baseball news. Josh Naylor, my guy. I don't know what to make of him. I've always liked Josh Naylor, especially after he left Cleveland. I didn't like Josh Naylor until he left Cleveland, and then he left Cleveland. I'm like, I love you, Josh Naylor. You're a great guy. And then this news comes out that apparently when he was in the minors, he played horrible pranks on his teammates, including hiding in one teammate's closet with a real knife and jumping out of the closet and cutting that guy's thumb so bad he had to go to the ER, and still has no feeling in his thumb. And the team was like, keep it quiet, and then traded him. So I do think that was more of a keep it quiet because we want to promote this guy, more of a keep it quiet. We're getting rid of him. Do not tell everyone what a crazy person he is, because we do want this trade to go through. I don't know if that makes it better or worse, honestly. Hopefully after the fact they're like, by the way, he did accidentally cut a teammate's thumb so bad he had to go to the ER, and he has nerve damage. So keep an eye on him. But they probably didn't. You know, these large corporations. But also, he was also the guy who, when Jen Powell came up, was like welcoming to her when a lot of other players just kind of ignored her. I don't know if that's performative. He did seem to really want to start something with I don't remember who the Mariners were playing. Oh, it was the Guardians. He did seem to want to start something with the Guardians with the hit by pitch. It may have been a competitive thing, because I've also seen interviews where he like tries to get under competitors' skin. I don't know. This is an example of we never really know these guys. You might think you know these guys, but you don't know these guys. And humans are complex. You can be the guy who accidentally cuts his teammate's thumb doing a stupid prank, but also genuinely is welcoming to a fresh umpire dealing with difficult circumstances. I don't have judgment to pass on Josh Naylor. I hope that he doesn't cut anyone else. I hope he learned from that prank that, you know, honestly, hiding in someone's closet, I do not like that prank. I am easily frightened. If you hide in my closet and jump out at me, I will be mad at you, even if you're not holding a knife. But if you're holding a knife, I might sue you, okay? So let's learn from this. You do not ever need a real knife for your prank. You can use a fake knife. If your prank needs a real knife to work, don't do that prank. Do a different prank. Okay? Let's not have bodily harm as a possibility in our pranks. Anyway, so that all happened. Anyway, we've got the All-Star game coming up. Bobby is dominating Andres Gimenez. I think he's finally going to get his first start at shortstop, so that's exciting. He had an awful series against the White Sox coming back, but he's looked much better against the Rays, so that's good. Had a couple home runs the other night. Love to see a Bobby bomb or two in a game. And Carter got his hitting streak all the way up to 20 before he finally lost it last night. 20 games, you know, sometimes I think that I don't know about you all, but I focus on that Joe DiMaggio 56-game hitting streak to the point that anything short of that feels like, why bother? But 20 games is pretty dang respectable. 20 games is a lot of games in a row to get a hit in a sport like baseball, where it is, you as Rex likes to say, you're trying to square up a round ball with a round bat. It's hard. Whenever I stop and think about the physics of baseball, I still wonder how anyone ever hits a baseball. Much less one thrown at 100 miles an hour with the kind of movement that these guys throw it. How do you see a baseball from 60 feet 6 inches away coming 100 miles an hour? You don't know how it's going to move, and you swing within a split second of seeing it and make contact with it. And some of these guys hit multiple home runs like that. How is that possible? I don't know. Maybe Brian.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
Brian Page from Rapsodo can tell me. So I will get him on here and stop boring you with my 20 minutes of monologuing. And we'll have a good time talking to Brian right after this break. See you then. And we're back. As I promised you earlier, I am joined now by Brian Page of Rapsodo. Hi, Brian. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jeremy. I appreciate you having me on.
We're so excited to have you. I know Jacob is kicking himself that he couldn't be here today. But just to give everyone and myself an idea, what is it? Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do over at Rapsodo, if you don't mind.
Yeah, for sure. So for me, my whole life, baseball has been my number one passion. Had the opportunity to play college baseball and a little bit of prospect league ball. Of course, the dream was always to play as long as I could, but had the opportunity right out of college to join Rapsodo when we got started in about 2016. So I've been with the company for 10 years. We are known for our ball flight data mostly. So that's going to be the batted ball and pitch ball data. If you tune into the Royals game, you see the Hawkeye data live in game, and you see, spin rate, exit velocity, launch angle, all these data points. So that's kind of our bread and butter. So what I do today is I manage our MLB relationships. So that's throughout the entire season, from the winter meetings to spring training to, the Arizona Fall League. So now that we've grown a little bit since 2016, that's my main focus at Rapsodo, is the MLB side of the business.
Awesome, yeah. I was looking at your website earlier, and I saw that y'all did some golf stuff too, and I was
yeah.
I don't know anything about golf, so I don't think we'll talk about that much. But I guess it's cool for you got the same kinds of things to look at there with ball flight and stuff.
Yeah, very similar. So our CEO was actually an engineer behind the first device. And our first product was golf, actually. He was an engineer that wanted to improve his golf game a little bit. So in the market of launch monitors, he thought he could do it a little bit more efficient, cheaper. And he built the first Rapsodo golf device. And a big part of that is tracing the dimples on the golf ball. And then took that technology into laces algorithms. So that's a big part of what we do. Of course, there's the radar component for velocity, but that triggers our cameras to measure the laces on a baseball or softball to get a very high level accuracy on spin rate, the spin direction, that type of data. So he actually started in golf, and then now big in diamond sports as well.
Hey, well, I'm super glad to hear it. You're always hoping your team is getting the best information possible. So is Rapsodo primarily technology? It's not going to be like a Tread Athletics where it's like coaching. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so we know the guys at Tread, but really what we're doing is we have the baseball and softball knowledge in-house, but it really is the technology piece. Our hardware is known for being in bullpens and batting practice, so we have the hardware and the software to allow, like the Tread Athletics of the world, the drive lines, really across the whole baseball and softball world, the ability to set our camera up and then get the data instantly on the iPad for ththese bullpens and batting practice. So we work with those guys. We have certification courses that kind of say, hey, this is what the data means, because there's a lot there. But yeah, so we do work with them a lot, but we're really the technology partner for those facilities like a Tread Athletics.
You mentioned, you played baseball in college, and I know Rapsodo technology has infiltrated down to college, and I think even to the high school level to some degree. Did you use Rapsodo stuff to help you improve your game while you were playing?
Yeah, I love that question because I kind of have a story there. I was a pitcher, and 5'11" righty, topped out 92. So nothing, that's about
I
it.
Out 54. So
yeah. So my senior year, I was able to get my master's the fifth year. I tore my rotator's cuff. And that's when Rapsodo was getting started. So I was playing my fifth year senior ball while being the first guy to test Rapsodo 1.0. And as I got through that season, I realized I should have been pairing a slider with my curveball based on my release window, the gyro I could create on it. So honestly, in the first few bullpens when I was done with my career, I found out in a few bullpens, man, I could have been a slider guy and it probably would have been a better breaking ball than my curveball. So I like to tell that because, like, man, I picked up on that quick, but hey, the career is over. And then since the arm was still hot, I did a lot of our early testing as, we collected a lot of pitches in different environments.
That's really cool. Can you talk a little bit more about, because I'm curious about how this all works. As I told you before we started talking, I don't know a lot about biomechanics or ball flight or any of this stuff. I'd love to learn, though. So can you tell me, what about the data told you that the slider would have been a pitch for you?
Yeah, so for this example specifically, I was changing where I was releasing the ball because I was a 3/4 arm slot guy naturally. Mm-hmm. So I had like arm side run on my fastball. Well, what I was taught and tried to throw was like a 12-6 curveball, like right. Trying to like Kershaw, for example, somebody that's like straight down, which is so hard to do, just because I was taught a curveball that way. Well, when you hear like the tipping the pitches, I'm sure I was doing that a lot because I was going from a 3/4 slot to almost 6 inches higher to get the top spin on the ball.
That makes sense.
So
yeah.
The tunneling piece, and then I was just naturally from that slot able to get a lot of gyro degree on it for like bullet spin. So where my curveball is fine, but that's just an example where it would have paired better, probably created more deception, got more outs, for example.
That's really cool. You had mentioned the Hawkeye cameras, I believe. Mm-hmm. Is that a Rapsodo technology, or is that just something y'all work with?
No, so yeah, great question. So it's Sony owned, and that is today's MLB data provider of in-game. Okay. So every single ballpark has 18 cameras. Half of them are doing what they call like spin ball, so it's getting the ball flight data. The other half is doing the player tracking, the type of stuff you see on the broadcast. Sony owned company called Hawkeye. Before that, it was TrackMan. I believe Hawkeye took over in like 2019. So they're optical based like we are. It's just a much more expensive device for the in-game side of things for MLB and
Gotcha.
Getting down to college ball and spring training complexes and all of that, to where we really focus on the training side. So a guy sharpening his pitch in the bullpen, getting that off-season data, tracking that development over time on the practice side.
That's really cool. It's the technology that they have these days is mind-boggling to me. Like, the idea that if you could have told me 20 years ago that I'm gonna know how many revolutions per minute that curveball makes is like just absolutely mind-bending to me.
Absolutely. And when it came out in 2016, it was like, okay, we can track this, but now, like, what does it mean? When a guy has a 2600 RPM fastball, okay, what's that mean? If they're below average, like say it's like they're still throwing in the 90s, but it's around 1900, we knew it had more like natural drop to it, but there was years of, hey, what do we do with this? How do we shape players, the player development side? And I mean, I saw it at spring training, even big league clubs are doing that. Like, we get all this influx of data, and it's, hey, what do you do with it? And fast forward 10 years, it's pretty cool what different departments know what they value. If they like guys that stay around true backspin 12 o'clock, get that lift out of the ball, for example. Just came a long way of like coaches and analytic departments realizing what they value and what type of guy they want to develop and go get for their roster. It's but it is a lot of data for sure.
So one of the things when Tara Evans reached out to us to offer an interview that she mentioned was that you would be able to talk about how players break out of a mid-season slump with data instead of just guessing. And I'd love for you to talk about that more, because the Royals sure as heck have some guys in some mid-season slumps. They also have some guys that they've had guys for the past few years that have the April slumps, and it feels like they might be guessing a little bit and could use some more data to figure that out.
Sure. One thing I did want to say too, I'd love to dive into that, but being the MLB guy, I want to say that the Royals have been an awesome partner. Been down to Surprise many times. They use a lot of our stuff on the hitting side, because we of course have hitting and pitching. But yeah, when you talk about the slumps, like, I know that term, you definitely think on the hitting side first, but like my mind on the pitching side, one thing is all of this data going back to like the Hawkeye of what's available is it's pretty immediate when a guy can see what he's struggling with. Like, hey, my slider's getting hit at a higher batting average than I'd expect. I'm missing my command and locations. Like on the pitching side, when we talk about that topic, that's where Rapsodo comes in. And hey, between my next start, I want to actually work on my slider. Can I sharpen it? Can I tighten it up? Is it creating the break profile I want? So that's kind of like on the pitching side of utilizing that data of, hey, the in-game data is telling me I'm struggling on this. Now that I have time to experiment a little bit and sharpen my craft, we get a lot of that. But then on the hitting side, and all of these pitchers throwing so hard these days, and it's the hardest it's ever been to, we see these batting averages lower than ever. It's the same idea, though, is these guys have scouting reports now to where they can quickly see, I am swinging over low and away pitches, I'm chasing more than I should be, and they get that from that in-game report. Well, what you can do with a tool like Rapsodo is, okay, then in the batting cage, you can pair a pitching machine. You can turn on the pitching side and make sure that that's actually the spin rate, the break on the curveball maybe you're swinging over, so that you're then creating that more competitive environment while you're training. And yes, of course, like a pitching machine is never going to be truly in the box against Paul Skeens or whoever. But it's at least, dialing in more of, hey, this is the pitch profile I'm actually struggling with. To take that, a step further, you can turn on the video with the iPad, and it actually crops the data and puts it in slow motion for you. So if it's something, too, where a coach is like, hey, I think it might be something in your mechanics, like your foot's not getting down, your lower half's lazy, whatever it may be, that's where you can also pair that camera with training off of that pitch you may be struggling with, for example, or chasing pitches. Well, then now at that point, you have the video, so that athlete can then start to connect the dots a little bit of, oh, I actually didn't realize my heel was getting down that late. Being able to get the visual side, and then on the analytical side, it's, hey, are you improving against that slider you're swinging over, for example? I think that's pretty broad. Of course, there's many variables here. That's to where, Rapsodo is a tool to allow coaches to spend time with the athlete and actually track that rather than just what the naked eye sees. Throwing bullpens back in the day was catcher saying, hey, man, that looked good. Pitcher said, the coach says, replicate that, that looked tight. Well, now you can have every single shot, seeing that development over that time. So I think a lot of it is, specifically from us at Rapsodo, is, hey, we know the in-game is this way, like I mentioned. All the scouting reports are showing this. Let's actually get in the lab and try to replicate it, see if we can improve it. Let's maybe make a mechanical change and see if we can improve it. Guy I think of, I grew up in Eastern Indiana, always followed the Reds naturally growing up. And if you remember Arcidius Aquino, he came up, I guess it's been a little bit now, but was on record pace for home runs, but any breaking ball low and away, he swung over and missed by 2 feet. And it was a quick-lived MLB, career when it looked like he could be an incredible prospect because he could match the ball. But that's an example where, if you have that data into the practice setting, maybe you do recognize that off-speed pitch a little bit quicker since you can get all those reps, earlier in the day, in the cages.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I want to go back to what you were saying about going down to spring training and surprise with the Royals, because I hadn't realized that you would go down there and meet with the team like that. What do you? I don't know. Maybe you can't tell me because I don't know if there's NDAs or something. But I was curious if you could tell me a little bit about like what kinds of things you work on with the team in spring training like that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, there are some things we're, of course, respectful and careful with the MLB partners. But, what I do, at spring training, I go every year, going on 10 years. Part of it is, with these operators that may be new of like setting up the Rapsodo, using the Rapsodo, if they have any data questions. I spend a lot of time with those guys, the staffs that are actually utilizing the equipment, meeting them, making sure that relationship's good so they're comfortable, reaching out to me throughout the whole year to support them and whatnot. But this last fall, I actually had a pretty cool experience in Surprise where I got to spend some time with Brian Sweeney and his bullpens, showing a newer device we had, just saying, hey, this is our new device, the Pro 2.0. Hey, you guys want to check it out, So it's pretty cool. The teams are always very welcoming, and I spend a lot of time in Florida and Arizona. But again, I just wanted to mention the Royals is always such a friendly faces, and I always love going to that complex. And, the Rangers on the other side are the same way with that, sharing that complex. But, yeah, a big part of it is making sure they're comfortable with the data. If there's any new coaches, hey, like, I'm here to answer the questions and not to tell you what to do with the data, but, hey, here's what it means. And, we've seen these success stories, that type of time with the team.
Sure.
Or if we have anything new, it's like, hey, this is, what's coming. What do you guys think? Because, we want to build things based off the highest level of baseball. And, if they like what they're seeing, it's great feedback for Rapsodo. And, we get that, at the winter meetings and spring training. But, for example, we recently implemented seam shifted wake, and that was because, teams are like, hey, this is the new thing, and if you guys can provide it, we'll use it. So we really appreciate that feedback and, those relationships we've built with the clubs.
I've heard that term seam shifted wake, but I can't for the life of me remember if I ever did understand what it means. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, I can try. It's a tough one. It truly is. So the whole concept of seam shifted wake is, it starts with the seam orientation. So with the baseball being so unique, when you think of other, balls in sports with, a basketball, soccer ball, whatever, the laces are, just so unique. So the forces that, throughout ball flight is, of course, going to affect the movement a little bit. So it starts with the seam orientation to, hey, how is the ball actually oriented in the hand at release? That's where it starts, and that's where we can show that exact orientation in the app, and then also like a longitude, latitude, where it gets complicated quick with we plot it like on a map, like a molly-wide plot. So that's the start of it. But then the seam shifted wake breaks are essentially the extra horizontal and vertical break that is being created due to the orientation of the pitch and then also the atmospheric properties. So the air pressure, the altitude, the temperature, and humidity. So it does take into account the also the environment you're in, because that also plays forces on the baseball. So it's a complicated one. It's hard to wrap your head around, but essentially, again, how the ball's oriented, and then with that orientation through the air, are you creating or killing extra vertical or horizontal break? So it's just it's a second level of vertical and horizontal break, basically.
Okay, I think that makes sense. I just thinking about the talking about the atmospheric pressure, and it's like baseball fans, longtime baseball fans, I think know that these things affect it. Like we hear that, you go to Colorado, you play in Denver, the curve ball doesn't curve as much.
Exactly.
And same for spring training. Every year in spring training, we're like, everyone says, don't panic. If your pitcher's a curveball pitcher, he's not suddenly bad. It's just hard to throw a curveball in spring training in Arizona.
Yep. That is such a good point. It's quantifying those things, really.
Yeah.
I mean, you're exactly right.
So the team can know by looking at this data, like how much of this is because you're in Arizona and how much of this is because you're not throwing the curveball the way that you want to.
Right.
That's so cool. It just reminds me of my physics classes in college, and I'm like, it's a spherical cow in a vacuum, because we don't want to have to take any of that. And you guys do take all of that stuff into account.
Yeah, we do. And it's, the application side is, hey, if you change that, the grip, for example, not necessarily, the hand grip, but just the orientation again in the hand.
Right.
If I get this lace, acting a certain way, or if the open side of the ball, like the laminar effect side, is that air going to push it for more arm side run? And it's a bunch of experimental stuff. I think we're not at a point where it's like, hey, hold the ball exactly this way. Every single pitcher is different. They're different arm speeds, different heights, arm slots. It's never going to be cookie cutter, and we would never at Rapsodo say, hey, do this. But it is a trial and error of like, hey, I just created 3 more inches of arm side run because of how I hold the ball, and it can be a tool that can affect ERA a little bit, or gets more strikeouts.
I love that. That's super cool. I was like, I wish I could apply this to some of the stuff in my own life. Like give me, teach me how to do my laundry like 30 seconds quicker, something like that. It doesn't work that way, of course, but to see the tools that everyone has these days and that you all are coming up with is so cool. Let me hit one of these other questions that Tara suggested in the email. So can you tell me a little bit about the metrics that actually signal the turnaround versus the metrics that might fool you. Because heaven knows I've looked at guys and said, "Oh, he's fixed, everything's fine," and nope, it wasn't.
Yeah, that's it's a complicated one for sure. I mean, when we're talking like metric by metric, there are some that like I like to lean towards. If we want to talk on the hitting side, I know we mentioned like hitters being in a slump. One that's I think like a lot of time the casual fan doesn't think about too much is just spin rate in general. Because what happens with it can really be an indicator of the quality of contact. And I say that because as a ball is hit more, center, where the bat path and the ball trajectory from the pitch, when they meet squared up, the spin rate gets really low. You see in a broadcast, or if you're, baseball experience of a ball that's like knuckling, for example, it's that ball, that's a ball that's just squared up. It's not going to be a home run, but it's, hey, the barrel is getting to the ball on the right plane, and you're seeing the ball well. Because I think that's one, too. If we're talking about a guy that's just, swinging and missing, making, really MLB-type infield fly pop-ups, like just the contact's not there. If maybe that's part of the slump issue. That's a big one. I mean, we used to have our office right now is in St. Louis, and when Matt Adams was making a comeback, he would hit ball after ball after ball and be looking at the spin rate for quality of contact, for example. So I like to lean on that one because, velocity, you can get caught up in it. The hardest hit balls are at 0-0, for example. Sure, if that's up the middle and it gets past the pitcher, yeah, maybe that's getting out of a slump and, collecting some base hits. But, if it's a -2 degree launch angle, 110 mile an hour ball to the shortstop, that's not it's not going to be a good result, right?
Sure.
So I like to lean on the spin rate one just for quality of contact. And, I mentioned it before too, but just the video part, what's the body doing? And is it something with like, the hands, the loading, just to, keep the bat in the zone longer for, contact potential. So that's one. Another is spin direction. So the way we measure spin direction is like the face of a clock. So, for example, if a ball is perfect backspin, like out of a pitching machine, exactly perfect backspin, it's 12 o'clock.
Okay.
The opposite side of that, like a 12-6, again, like a Clayton Kershaw straight down curveball is 6 o'clock.
Okay.
So, in a training session with Rapsodo, if a guy's getting out in front or something, they're going to be seeing, that ball hooking a lot more too. Because, of course, there's like physics with that. A field is built, where center field is 400 feet for a reason, because that's where more naturally 12 o'clock spin direction contact is going to happen and the ball can carry more. But, if a guy's getting out in front and hooking the ball, they see that in the spin direction data. If they're behind and, kind of fading it off to the right side, foul, that's when you see a lot of like 3 o'clock type of straight side spin. And that can let a hitter know, like where they're at in timing. And again, hitting is, in my opinion, the hardest thing to do in all of sports. So there's not an easy answer, but there are some things that in the data you can go take a look at. Not that it's like a magic solution, but it definitely can hopefully get to the fix sooner than later.
I'd never heard that about the side spin, the hooking or the tailing that could indicate timing on your swing.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something I'll be watching in the future. I'm always enamored of, as a Royals fan, Jack Caglione's exit velocity numbers.
He's the man. I love Jack. We had a chance to work with him. He's the man.
Oh, that's cool. But it's definitely one of the things people were complaining about last year as I kept going, the exit velocities. They're like, but it's in the ground.
Right.
Yeah, but the exit velocities.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, it's what's fun. It's what's fun for sure. I mean, seeing those balls that are at the right launch angle at 115, it's the most exciting thing in the game.
For sure. Sometimes the Royals, I don't know how much you're paying attention to the standings. The second worst team in baseball, worse than AL. Sure. So I got to find my positives where I can, and
sure.
Jack exit velocities are one of the things I still get to enjoy.
Again, man, long-time Reds fan here. So
yeah, you get it.
Yeah.
So, gosh, I had a question, and then my brain said, nope, it's gone now. Yeah, that's really cool about the exit velocities and adding on to that, and because I know that's something that ever since it's been introduced, I and other kind of armchair analysts look at it and go, okay, exit velocity. This is a metric that makes a lot of sense, but it doesn't. Like I was saying with Jack, if you hit it on the ground, it doesn't help you. And so seeing like, okay, there's other thing, and I knew launch angle plays into that of you want to get the certain launch angle, but the spin, the side spin also, that it's blowing my mind.
Yeah, I'm glad. I was actually just about to go to launch angle because I think that can be the most misleading factor. I really do. I mean, and maybe we're not talking MLB, right? Because those guys can create the exit velocity to hit a ball in the gap. It's more consistent than, of course, like amateur ball. But example I'd like to share is, say we mentioned before, there's a lot of Rapsodo in the high school level, academies that are youth kids. Well, an instructor or coach may see in the broadcast, hey, the average launch angle this year in the MLB, 29-degree launch angle, for example, is creating the most home runs. Well, then, if in that training session with, that high school or youth athlete, if they're trying to create 29-degree launch angle, kind of like train that into their swing, they're hitting the ball 75 miles per hour, and it's getting caught 80% of the time. Right. Yeah. So, again, maybe not the best MLB example because those guys are capable of that. And when they train those launch angles, of course, there's more variables to create, balls in the gap, home runs, for example. But I just think overall the launch angle can get a little misleading because, the speed and the spin rate matters a lot on that of, hey, is that actually going to be a double? No, it's just going to be, caught over and over, even though you're consistently getting 29-degree launch angle at, in the 70 miles per hour, for example.
I think one of the things that gets a lot of people too is it feels like average launch angle can be very deceiving because if you're hitting a lot of ground balls and a lot of pop-ups, your average launch angle might look really nice, but those are all bad launch angles individually.
Right. Yeah,
so that's something I feel like fans we've got to look out for sure. I doubt any MLB players are being fooled by those kinds of things.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's so much data thrown at them, like we spoke about before, and it's each analytic department, of course, has different things they value, different ways they implement it, and things they're looking for. But it is. There's definitely things that I think an important thing at Rapsodo is we just hope that that anyone using is like understanding what each data point is, and there's not misleading situations where where youth coaches are having the kids hit the ball in the air and creating bad habits. But that's where that tool is really intended for those coaches to go do what they do best. The good coaches can really utilize it to make a kid swing better, their outcome better, create some new pitches. That's really the idea that we want to make available to not just the MLB but the whole baseball and softball world.
Sure. To that end, you said you're in high schools. Are you in a lot of high schools, or can you talk a little bit about that? How likely is someone to see a Rapsodo machine or program in a high school that they're at?
Yeah. So it's definitely growing. So the players at that level get exposed to it very often at the facilities. That's the biggest part of the market for us. All these baseball and softball academies, and they're popping up more and more. That is the biggest part of what we do, of where the most units are, is what I'm trying to say. Okay. With that being said, some instructors there, like at the high school level coaches, they will also be, off season with the travel ball club and, a high school coach. So naturally too, we're seeing those high schools also, get a lot more Rapsodo. There's a lot of growth there where they're actually comfortable in implementing it into, their practices. One thing that's tough there is like timing with the athletes. You still have 2-3 sport, athletes, maybe only a couple times a week, and they're trying to get their bullpens in a couple hours. I think it's a lot better now. But a lot of the players at that age are getting a lot of that training at the facilities in the off season. But yeah, definitely a good amount of high schools, and it's our biggest growing market right now. At that level.
And, sorry, thinking of how to phrase this question. Is Rapsodo technology something that more belongs in like an academy or something like that than it's not really an individual user kind of thing, probably? Do I have that right?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. We do get a good amount of individuals that will get that if they're, fortunate enough to have a batting cage set up or something like that. Mm-hmm. We do see that a good amount actually. But yeah, it's with the cameras, they they automatically adjust to the lighting they're in. So portability and really flexibility is two of our biggest strengths. So taking that device from the indoor lanes in the academy out to the field to set up on the field for the bullpens, it really is very good for a team setting. So if that's, the high school, the college, the academy travel ball, yeah, it's very common. And those coaches and instructors taking it, indoors and outdoors is a big part of what we do.
I keep seeing these ads. You said portability, and it reminded me of these ads I keep seeing of like these people putting up it looks like cell phone size. It might be a cell phone and just using the cell phone camera.
Oh yeah.
Like attaching it to a fence to record baseball activity. Is that a similar idea to what Rapsodo's doing? I assume it can't be as good as what Rapsodo's doing, but
yeah, I think we may see more of that with just how good phones are getting, like the ability to maybe track some data. I think maybe is Game Changer possibly part of what you're referring to? Like if you're familiar with those guys, yeah. So they're awesome. It's a company that's backed by Dick's Sporting Goods, and it's blowing up because they make it very easy to stream the game. So they're able to give a velocity on their stream, but then you see it clipped on the fences to where grandma, grandpa at home, or whoever can't, travel with, especially with travel ball, going state to state. It's a lot of travel in these parents these days. It's a way to stream the game with a nice little clip it on the fence and be able to see it in real time. It's really cool what they do. So we do see a lot of that to where it's clipped on the fence, and the streaming is a big part of what they do, and with the velocity attached to it. Yeah, but cameras are getting better and better with phones and everything. So it's something on our radar, and I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to get a lot of data from those these more improved cameras that we're seeing today.
Again, if you'd told me 20 years ago the quality of pictures you can get from a phone camera, just mind-boggling in the video and everything.
It truly is.
And even the quality that I see when I take a photo, I'm like, well, I wouldn't want to use that to try and analyze a swing or something, but
right.
To think you could get there someday soon, so cool. I guess I don't want to keep you here forever, so I could ask you questions all day. But is there anything that you wish I had asked that you would like to talk about a little bit before I let you go?
I guess one thing we haven't really covered is, and something that has been really cool at Rapsodo, is just the amount of pro guys that value this data and like to utilize it at spring training and stuff. But they're like, hey, I'm training somewhere else throughout the off season. It's pretty cool to see the guys that kind of reach out and want their own device. So that's just something that comes to mind is the pro staff's pretty cool. We've had guys like Aaron Judge, Mookie Betts. Jack, again, like we talked about, Jack, he was an NIL guy that was using it at Florida, has his own 3.0 is what we call it. We had, Chase Burns in that program. We had Vance Honeycutt. So I guess that's one thing is, we didn't really touch on is, these big leaguers, if it was 2016 and I went and set this up, they kind of turn their head what is this? I've pitched in the bigs for 15 years. How is a team going to use this against me? Is this going to come up in arbitration? To now, these guys grew up with it in the academies and stuff we talked about, and they're like, hey, what was my driver degree on that pitch? It felt good, but what did the Rapsodo have it on?
Sure.
So that's been really cool to see. And again, I've been here 10 years, so I think that's one of my favorite things about this journey is the guys, it's no longer just a tool that's, hey, let's put out data to capture it and we'll figure it out later. It's even the players are like, hey man, I want the Rapsodo out there because that's what I'm used to in training. And that's been really neat to see.
Yeah. Speaking to that is part of the MLBPA proposals is to make that data available to the players. So yeah, it's cool. And hearing, we saw Jack had some struggles last year, but he's really come around this year, and knowing, hey, he's working with this Rapsodo stuff. It's good to know that it feels like, again, I keep going back to 20 years ago, but 20 years ago, is Jack a bust because he doesn't have access to this data, to these tools? It's good to know that they have a greater chance to succeed now.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, we had the chance to work with Jack, Florida, and then IL, and he's just...
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Summer is here, which means we all want to look and feel our best. A GLP-1 may be right for you. Visit orderlymeds.com to learn more about which GLP-1 you could be eligible for. Getting started is fast, easy, and happens virtually through telemedicine from licensed professionals. Check it out for yourself. Go to orderlymeds.com/podcast. That's orderlymeds.com/podcast. Taking care of yourself feels great. Compounded medications are not FDA approved. Eligibility required and determined by a licensed provider. Individual results may vary. See website for details.
The best, so he's definitely a guy I watch and root for, no doubt, and I'm sure he'll have an incredible career from our experiences with him. He's pretty phenomenal.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Brian. It was great talking to you, and I hope we can talk to you again someday soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Always happy to jump on, and really appreciate you having me. And yeah, go Royals.
Thanks. All right, and we're back. Thank you again so much to Brian and the team at Rapsodo for setting that up. It was great talking to him. I feel like I actually learned a fair bit there. Really look forward to talking to him again someday in the future. Someday soon, someday in the future, someday in the future. But I've got to have Jacob with me next time, because I feel like I left so much meat on the bone there. But hopefully we'll get that figured out. No Jacob today, so you just get my Royals review. Oh, before I get to that, I do want to mention that since I recorded the intro to this podcast, I've since learned that Cole Reagan's received UCL surgery. So we talked about he's had 2 Tommy Johns already. The rumor going around is that this was the internal brace procedure, because the timeline is a little bit shorter than it would have been for full reconstruction Tommy John. But that's still 10 to 12 months. We not only will we not see Cole Reagans this year, we may not see him till halfway through next year, and who knows what he'll look like when he comes back. This is just absolutely devastating for us Reagans truthers, and I'm so mad right now that I'm not mad that the Royals didn't trade Reagans for Duran, but I'm mad that this worked out the way that it did. I wanted the Royals to not trade Reagans for Duran, and for Reagans to be the guy he was in 24, and be that guy for the rest of his career and not deal with all these injuries. It just sucks. It just sucks. It does. I'm bummed out about it, and I wish that it hadn't happened this way. I guess we'll just have to see. We'll have to see if and when he comes back. Yeah. Anyway, let's get on to the Royals review, I suppose. So this week, I am going to be reviewing the video game that I just finished the story in last night, two nights ago, and that I finished earning the platinum in a short while before I started interviewing Brian. And that game is Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Now, you've heard that this is a very good game, and I'm sure that you've heard that it's a sad game. And I'm here to tell you, both of these things are true. But what I feel gets missed a lot in the people talking about it being a sad game, and it was 100% a game, not just with sad stuff happening in it, but a game that is about grief. I mean, the setup is, and this is mild spoilers. I'm not going to deliver major spoilers, because you absolutely have to play this game without major spoilers if you're going to play it. If you've already played it and you want to talk to me about it in detail, you know how to find me on BlueSky. I would love to talk to you about. I've been thinking about it nonstop since I finished the ending of the game. But it opens up with this event called the Gamage, where this giant being across the continent, across the world almost from you, has this giant pillar that she paints numbers on, and currently painted on it is 34, and she wipes it away and then paints 33, and everyone over the age of 33 instantly dissolves into flower petals and dies, and they call it the Gamage. And this has been happening for 67 years since she first painted 100 on there, which is, wow. Just, I mean, if you don't instantly know from this prologue that this game is about death and grief and how you deal with it, then you're not paying attention, because that's what this game is about. And it really does dive deeply into those themes. And if you haven't played the game and you want to play the game, I want you to stop listening here, because I'm not going to deliver major spoilers, but I am going to deliver spoilers. And I really think you shouldn't have spoilers going into this game. I think that this game is a beautiful game. Oh, I forgot. Sorry, excuse me. Let me back up for a second and say, people talk about how sad this game is, but they don't talk about how beautiful this game is. And I don't just mean the graphics. I mean the relationships and the people and how, I mean, those things are beautiful. The music is beautiful. Everything is beautiful. But the way that they all approach this, the ideas of the beings that you come across in the world as you go out on an expedition to try and stop the paintress from continuing to paint a lower number and getting everyone killed. That's your goal. And you know, lots of adventure along the way. And I don't hear anyone talk about how amazing the adventure is, how the wonder of discovery is alive in these people as they face death, but they also want to learn, and they want to love, and they want to know things. And it's not just, I feel like it would be so easy under those circumstances to be consumed by hatred and regret. And none of these people have that. All the characters have joy and love and a thirst for knowledge and for growing. And it's so beautiful. In that way, it's so uplifting and so joyous. So if you've been holding off from the game because you're like, oh, it's not grief and it's sad and I don't know about that, it is, but it's about so much more, and it's such an incredible journey that I hope you'll give it a chance. But now you should stop listening, because I'm going to get into some spoilers, and I'm not going to give specifics, but I'm going to get into some spoilers for the ending of the game. So there are multiple twists throughout the game that I think are pretty interesting. Some are executed better than others. I'm not going to get into that right now. But the one problem I have is you get to the end of this game, and I swear the ending was made by BioWare. Because you get to the end of this game and you're presented a choice, and you can choose one of two possible endings at the end of this game. And BioWare, the reason I say I feel like this came from BioWare is because BioWare had this trend going all the way back to Knights of the Old Republic, where your choices matter in this RPG. Your choices matter. And I think it's fine to have your choices matter. Certainly, I loved the first two Mass Effect games, and I love that people love games like Baldur's Gate 3, where your choices matter to such huge degrees. But there's been a tendency, especially in BioWare games, to get to the end of the game and be like, well, this was a game about choice, so the final moment has to be a choice, and it has to be a difficult choice. And so their only concept of difficult choice seems to be that something bad happens in every choice you make, which, I mean, I guess that makes sense, because if there was a choice for everyone to be happy forever, then people would pick that choice overwhelmingly, as compared to the other choices, and then it's not much of a choice. But the way that BioWare has done this, and the way that Expedition 33 does this, is that the downsides of every choice are so bad that I don't want to pick any of those choices. This goes all the way back to Mass Effect 3, when you had the 3 possible endings. I want to rant about this. I've ranted about this for hours in my life. I've written articles about this on my blog. You could probably read those, and you don't need me to rant about it again. You probably, if you remember the Mass Effect 3 controversy, you don't need to ever hear about it again. If you don't remember it, you don't care. So I'll leave that aside. But even going from Mass Effect 3 all the way to Dragon Age Veilguard, I felt like the choices at the end of Dragon Age Veilguard were very, like, all the choices are bad, so pick which bad you mind the least. And that's just not a fun way to end a video game. It would be one thing if, man, if there was a noble sacrifice to be made, or if there was not even a choice. If I'd gotten to the end of Expedition 33 and I'd had no choice, and everyone in the expedition had died, and that meant, oh, well, we did the best we could, and we just kind of have to accept that. I feel like that would have really fit within the themes of the game. So I guess spoilers, that's not what happens. I feel like that would have fit within the themes of the game. It would have fit within the themes of grief and how do you respond to it. To see all these characters respond to, we tried so hard to end this cycle of destruction and we couldn't. So that's not what happens, of course. What happens is you're given kind of an epilogue-ish kind of thing where you're allowed to make a choice where both the results are just awful. It's just like, how would I ever choose either of these things? Because both of these choices mean horrible outcomes for people that I love. And they're like, the positives that come from these choices are not enough to overcome that at all. And it's not, and neither choice is noble is a key thing. Both choices feel very selfish in how they're presented. And I hate it. I hate that kind of storytelling. I hated it when BioWare did it. And it reminds me of a thing that I think I've talked about on the podcast before. I certainly threatened Jacob with, like, I'm going to send you like a 20-minute postscript to add on to the end of an episode one time so I can rant about this. Of this idea of leaving stories up to the viewer or the reader, leaving the end moment of so for example, in the TV show Chuck that no one watched, no one cares about, his love interest loses her memory in the final episode, and then they have this conversation and they're like, if we kissed, maybe you would remember. And then they kiss and then it fades to black. And it's like, did she remember? We're not going to tell you because we want you to come up with your own ending. And I'm like, I paid you to tell me a story, and you should tell me the story that I paid you to tell me, not tell me to tell my own story. If I wanted to tell my own story, I wouldn't have paid you to tell me a story. And we are paying for it, whether that's ads that we watch or direct money that we give to these people. So yeah, I hate that. And this feels like kind of an extension of that, of like, well, you have to make a choice, but I don't want the choice to be easy. And no, you don't have to make me make a choice. Even in a game that was all about choice, you can just be like, this is how this story ends. And I will accept that because I paid you to tell me this story. And I like that. I enjoyed being able to make individual choices throughout the game that changed outcomes. I feel like that's fun. That's part of the interactivity of video games. But in the end, don't make me choose between two awful things. Just tell me what happens. Even if it's awful, you do it. Why are you? It's I did talk about this before because I said it's cowardly, and I think this is cowardly, and I don't like it. Anyway, I'm done rambling about that. If you're still here, I can't believe you sit through me rambling about video games that probably none of you care about. But I love you for it. I appreciate you. You all are great. I'm so glad I got to still talk to you this week, even though I didn't have Jacob around. And, Jacob will be here next time, hopefully. Maybe the Royals will win some games this weekend. We'll see what happens. not holding my breath, but I am holding my breath to see if Jack gets a call to the Derby. I want to see it so bad. Just give me this one good thing. Pretty please, MLB. Just give me this one good thing for the Royal season this year. Let me see Jack in the Derby. That's all I'm asking for. That's all I want. Jack in the Derby. Okay. I'm done talking. Thank you all so much for listening. And until next time, go Royals!
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.